Dear Liberal friends, for me and for the ALDE group in the Committee of the Regions, it's a great honor to host the first debate. And I would like to thank Hans van Baalen, our president, for it. We choose the theme, Renewing Democracy, because we see at the local level what a devastating force populism can be, how it can tear societies apart, but we also see how we can build new bridges, how we can renew democracy, how we put in place an inclusive policy. And you know that liberal mayors are the best in doing that. So we have two good guests. Xavier had to excuse himself, he had another obligation, so of course we understand that. But we have Margrethe, who had already a very impressive speech, but we also have with us Albert Rivera, the man, the president of the very successful Ciudadanos ALDE partner in Spain, and I would like to welcome you, and maybe a small, big applause for Albert. Albert, I would like to start with you because we heard a lot of inspiring speeches. Maybe you can give your first reflection on what you heard about democracy, renewing it, and fighting populism.
Well, Albert is so good that he can speak without a mic. But here we go.
Now, well, first of all, thank you very much to invite us to this debate, and also I want to thank you the trust on us to organize the next Congress in Madrid. Thank you. We are very confident, and also we will receive you in Madrid, and I hope that Spain could be a good Congress for this liberal family. Well, first of all, I think that we have to situate the new frame in Europe. The left and the right axis is disappearing. French elections could be an example where the debate doesn't work again left or right. The debate was pro-European or not European, liberalisms against populisms, protectionist or freedom, human rights and civil rights against people who fight against. So the first of all is that we have a new frame to debate. We cannot use the debates of the last century. We need a new debate, and liberalism are the oppositors of the populist parties. The second one is that globalization means opportunities, means dreams against fears, but also we have to get solutions to people for the problems that they have. The middle class in the European citizens have a lot of problems, and the populist parties cannot be the only one who talk about the problems of the people. We have to talk about the problem of the people. We have to get solutions. Solutions how? When we have problems in education, problems in labor, in innovation, we have to modernize our policies. Policies is very important for the liberals because we are better than the populists, of course, but it's not enough. We need better policies than them, but also we need to talk about values. Better talk before about values. I want to talk about values. Values of equality, of freedom, solidarity, and also the civil rights who represents Europe. I think that we need to talk about values, and also we need a project for the majority of the people. And I want to talk about that because Ciudadanos is a party who started 2 years before in Spain. We get the 13–14% of the votes, but now we are growing. We are the first party in the opposition in Catalonia. We are now closer to the socialists in the second position in the polls in Spain. And we decide to talk to the majority, not to the minority. We need a project for the majority of the Spanish people and also for the European. So I don't know how many votes we will get in the future, but I'm sure that we have to have a project for the majority of the people. So this is very important for me. And the third one of these parts, policies, project and values, the third point important for the liberals is how to communicate, how to engage, I'll say the commissioner, how to engage with the people. Because we have the tools. I think that the European Union has the tools to connect, to link with the people. but we have to use it better, and also we have to communicate better. The populists, we have to recognize that they communicate better than us. They use emotions, they explain with a magical solutions and a fake solutions in 1 minute how to deal with the economy or how to deal with immigration. But we have to trust on us, trust on our values, and communicate better. Because there are a lot of people that are waiting not for the post-truth, are waiting for the truth. I'm sure that there are people in Europe waiting for a project that say the truth and fighting against the lies of the populism. So I trust on our values, the liberal values, but overall the European values. I trust on our policies. I trust on our project for the majority. But we have to trust on us. The liberals have to know that we are the solution against the populisms and nationalisms, that it's the same. It's the same side of the same coin, two sides, nationalisms and populism. So to final this first introduction, we have to think in our dreams, not in our fears. Mm-hmm. We have to connect with the people talking about the future, not back to the past. The populisms are saying to the people that the past was better than the future. We have to explain to the people that the future could be better than the past. And finally, in this same line, we have a challenge. We have a very big challenge, but we have a very big opportunity. Guy said before, and I agree with him, that we have a big opportunity in the next elections. The next election, European elections, the liberals could be really the opposition to the populism and nationalist parties. We are the only one because the socialists and the conservatives are not answering the new questions of the 21st century. There are new questions for the citizens of Europe. We need new answers. And the new answers are not in the left or in the right, are in the common sense, are in the new policies, are in the values of European Union, and also are in a project who can engage people for our future. So I trust on the future. I'm sure that the liberals could success in the next elections. And I know that in Spain we can contribute, we can help to the rest of parties of our family to be successful and to build and refund a new European Union, the European people and the European citizens of European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. To dig a little bit deeper in that value discussion, we know the weapon of populists, that's division, polarization. We know their ammunition, that's fear, that's envy, that's nostalgia, and we know their purpose, destroying the European project and destroying freedom and values. So if I look to what populists do, I always have to think about the book of George Orwell, 1984. They use the vocabulary of our open society, but they transform the content to the opposite. Like in 1984, you had a Ministry of Peace that was always on war. To give you two examples that for me are very striking, that's first, the basic idea of populism is rejecting diversity. They say diversity is a threat to our way of living, to our society, to our model. But they say, in fact, you are free as long as you act like me, behave like me, embrace the same ideas as I have, have the same habits as I have. A little bit like Henry Ford, when the first mass production of the T model came, people asked him, in which color can we have it? And he said, you can have it in every color as long as it is black. A little bit of reasoning of populism about how you have the right to be free. So we liberals understand that freedom and diversity are two sides of the same coin. You have no freedom without diversity. You have no diversity without freedom. And a second example, I think a very important one, is also that we defend fundamental principles that guarantee the freedom of everybody in our society. For example, the rule of law, the division of powers, democracy, equality of men and women. But what do, for me, if I look to populists, what do? They broaden the idea of fundamental values towards every tradition, every habit, and every conviction they have. And if you do that, change becomes always treason, or to say it with a French word, soumission. You cannot change anymore because then you are attacking the so-called fundamental values of populists. And we liberals know again that in a society where change is impossible, freedom dies. So for me there are two examples how populists use the narrative of an open society but transfer it in the opposite. Now the difficult question is, and that's a question maybe to Margrethe, because you spoke about bridging and including people. In reality, on the field, how do we convince people that the way populists promise them solutions is the wrong way, and how can we build bridges to people who are now doubting about our way of society is run? How can we gain again people for liberalism and for an open society? How do we do it?
Well, I think the first thing is not to make them our enemies, because I think it's very important to say to people, well, because you have been voting for a party that I disagree with, you're not my enemy. You are open to decide whomever you will vote for, but the fact that you've been voting for someone else doesn't put you in another camp. And I think sometimes there is a risk of generalizing to say, once you voted for a party that we disagree with, you're in that camp, and we'll have to fight you. Instead of saying, let's meet in an open space to discuss what are the issues at hand. Because I think what Albert is saying about saying, well, there are problems. And the problems with some of the suggestions of a right-wing nationalist party is not necessarily the problems that they point at. It's the solution that they suggest. Because they are very often not based in any kind of reality. They are not to be implemented. They will not work. But I think the starting point is to say, well, if you find that there are things that we should solve together, then figure out how to solve it. Because the paradox of our rhetorics here is that some people fear us. They fear sort of our ideas of an open liberal democracy, that it is exactly a threat to Christmas, to pork, to what they cherish. And I think it is important to say, well, the diversity is not traditions going down. Diversity is what can allow you to show who you are yourself. Just, probably you have seen it when a group becomes more gender balanced, it is very liberating for men as well. Because they can assume more different roles. Just the minute a group becomes more diverse, it is liberating also for those who seem to be the sort of homogeneous part of the group. And I think we have to show it more, to make it more direct, and to invite people, because I think sometimes they hear that we're against them, that it is people that we don't like, and not ideas that we find to be strikingly dangerous. And that, I think, is very much in the approach. If we approach people in an open way, or in a, I don't like the people you like, and we have not been very successful in doing that, but I think we have all the potential because we have people to show us how it's done. We see it with you, Albert, in Spain, we see it in Poland, how people engage. We see the parts of Europe coming out with flying colors. In many, many member states, we see this happening.
Albert?
Well, I think the only way to link and to connect people from 27 or 28 countries of Europe, the only way to connect people is about civil rights. It's about values. It's about respect the difference between us. It's impossible to build a new space with just one identity. We have to respect the identities in every country, each country inside the countries, but always respecting the rule of law, always respecting the civil rights, always respecting the treaties of the European Union. So for me, European Union is a project of civil rights, is a project of welfare state, is a project of values, of security. But it's impossible to say to the people that have to change the identity. Probably in the future, like in the United States, like 2 centuries ago, they was born there a new democracy, but with the basis of civil rights, not identity. People who come from different parts of the world that decide together a constitution, civil right bill. So for me, European Union is that. So the people like me, that I am Catalan and Spanish and European citizen, perhaps it's easier to understand, and other people who belongs to countries has different identities inside the countries. The liberals have to defend the freedom, the civil rights, and respect the difference between us. For me, this is a project, the project of the obligation to be in the only one identity is impossible for Europe. So the respect, the diversity are the other side of the freedom and the civil rights.
Can I add just one thing? Because I think there's one concrete issue that actually also unite Europeans, and it is that they are sick and tired of people not paying their taxes. Because citizens all over Europe have had to face the consequences of governments tightening the belt. You know, higher pension aid, lower pensions, higher taxes, higher VAT. And now they see most companies paying their taxes, but they see some companies who evade paying taxes, who evade making their fair contribution to the society where they make their business. And I think it is a core liberal value that everyone contributes its fair share. And I do hope that it will be one of the things that we will campaign for in each and every country, because people have seen it, they have contributed, and they do expect that not just the company where they work themselves or that they own themselves pay their taxes, but that all companies pay their taxes. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that can unite.
Yeah. But I think a very good point. Citizenship as a central element in the European construction, but Albert also shows with his party, Ciudadanos, that maybe liberals don't have to be afraid for the identity debate, because we have an identity debate. Populists started, but let's take it, because you show very clearly in Spain that people don't have to choose for one identity. I heard Ines in the Catalan parliament saying, I am and Catalan and Spanish, and my heart is big enough to be both, and European. So that's the concept of identity liberals have. An open identity, several identities, and we can change from identity. I'm Flemish, Belgian, European, but also father, liberal, and so on. And you can bridge throughout different identities. And populists try to reduce you to one identity, and they want to have the right, the power, to define what it means to be Catalan, for example. And so they destroy, again, the freedom of an individual to be himself or herself. So I admire a lot what you do at the moment in Spain by breaking it open, that debate, and giving people the freedom of choosing their own identity and fill it in like they want. So congratulations with that.
Thank you. It's not easy, but thank you. We are living a very difficult moment in Catalonia. Catalan, the nationalists divide the society in 2 blocks. This is the worst that you can do for your society, divide society. So the liberals and the liberals and Democrats has to defend this kind of links. I can share the civil rights, but it's impossible that you can say to me how I feel with a flag, or how I know which language I have to speak with my daughter. So this is the difference between the liberals and the nationalists. They want to say to you in which language you have to talk with your daughter or in the school. They decide which flag you have to defend and which one is the enemy. And for us in Catalonia, perhaps because we are liberals, we are successful now in this moment in the polls, because with the liberal view, we can propose a project for Spain, a project for Europe, but respecting the different identities in the country. This is my model. I don't know if one day I can be a prime minister of Spain, but it could be a new situation with a Catalan in the government of Spain. So if Guy is an example also of that, and other examples like Trudeau in Canada, that is also in the same position like me, because they are Also,
But I know Guy already for centuries, and I see you have built out of the same material, so you will be the next Prime Minister of Spain. I'm sure of that.
thank you.
Maybe there is also another challenge. We don't defend the European project good enough, and that brings me to Margrethe, because we have to show the added value of Europe, and I think you prove it every day again, and we are very proud that you do it in battling for an open market, fighting against monopolies, for a free market. And you have to know, maybe not everybody knows it in the room, but Margrethe was seen in Belgium as an excellent politician, but yesterday you became the hero of all Belgians because she fought against InBev, because InBev, the biggest brewery in the world, made the price of beer too high in Belgium, and now you are going to lower the price of beer in Belgium, and if you do that, you will be a champion forever. I already heard from some people in pubs in Belgium that they don't say Skol anymore or Santé, but they say Vestager today. So that's a very important thing. But you proved the added value of Europe, because Belgium couldn't do that alone, and you did it in so many other dossiers. So isn't that something we have to do more? Explain to people and show people what the real added value of the European project can be. Aren't we too technical in it?
Well, I don't think we have to tell people, because no one wants to be told. No one wants to have the lift finger to be told. But I think people like to see things happening. And the only reason why we can do this is that we have said, well, in my day job, I represent 500 million people. And this is the reason why this can happen. Because we said, with 500 people coming together, then we can sort of stand up for the biggest companies in the world. We can make sure that no one thinks that they are above the law. And exactly in these issues, which are cross-border, well, then it is obvious that it is not for the national competition authorities, it's not for the national government, it is for our European democracy to deal with this. And, you know, I do hope that these are the stories to show the success of enlarging our democracy, so that our democracy is as big as the problems that we're facing. We have a local, a regional, a national, and a European part of our democracy to allow us to do this. And we deal with things of everyday life. Of course, in Denmark, we say that beer is food. And now, indeed, this case is food for thought as well. But it is beer, it is chocolate, it is very concrete because it's also cement. It is everything that affects everyday life. And I think the time for this is as good as ever, because concentration is increasing. It's not as bad as in the US, but we are faced with very big companies. And it's, of course, a success. We're also faced with everything in society becoming digital. And very few Europeans trust digital companies to guard their personal information in a proper way. So this is the time to show Europeans, well, competition can empower you as a citizen in your role as a customer. Also, the biggest businesses in the world will have to treat you right, to serve you right, to give you affordable prices, choice of quality, to keep innovating. And this is what we can do, yes, in beer, in chocolate, in cement, in food packaging, in airplane travel, you know, everything in our everyday lives.
Well, I think in the job of Margrethe, that she represents that European Union doesn't have to be business friendly, has to be market friendly, has to think about customers, not to be or not friend of the companies. So this is a good point for the liberals. I am not business friendly. I am market friendly. I'm friend of the citizens who pay taxes, who want to get best service and down the prices of the service and best service. So I think this is a very important thing to explain to the people. It's not the same to talk about conflict between two companies in a monopoly or something like that, or explain to the people that your beer is cheaper. it's very different how to arrive to the people, how to connect to the people. So I think that we have to reinforce our job to explaining these cases, because I think European Union is that. European Union is that the prices go low or the prices are cheaper and the service is better. So I think this is for the youth especially, how to explain in a case that you are better inside the European Union than out of European Union.
But I think this is an excellent point. This is an excellent point because our task is to make sure that the market serves the society, that the market serves citizens. Yeah. This is why I'm a liberal. And we can make this work. We can make this work. And everything else has been tested around the world. But we find that when democratic decisions frame the market, then the market can serve the citizens. And another example would be renewable energies. When we use the market to decide what subsidies are needed, we get two things for the price of one, so to speak. We get the transition into renewables, and we get it at much more affordable prices in solar, in wind, in thermic energy, because the market serves us. And that, of course, takes that there is hands to modulate. And these are hands of democracy. And I think that is a great achievement, and it's a story that's almost untold.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we all agree. And I think it's a very important instrument of reconnecting people with the European project and with Europe. But maybe we have to do more. We heard the speech of Guy. He summed up very important proposals to reform Europe, to make Europe stronger, because still for a lot of people, Europe is a very complex building, not very accountable, not very clear, and it doesn't have a clear horizon anymore. Where do we want to go to with Europe? Is that also a task of liberals to be very outspoken next year and the years that come about our conviction to making Europe more stronger, more democratic, and also ask for very structural reforms in Europe? Or don't you think that is a central thing we have to do?
Well, when I discuss where we're going, people say we would like to make sure that our outer borders are safe. We would like to be in charge of illegal immigration. We'd like to protect refugees. We'd like to make sure that we can manage climate change, stop it from being too much, but adjust to what is happening, and of course to develop this amazing continent. I have never met anyone who said, I want interinstitutional reform. Never. It's never happened. Yes, well, I very often meet Guy, but I'm sorry, Guy, but we have to meet more in order for this to be sort of my main impression. Yeah. What I hear that people are asking for is that we make it work. And I think that we still have a lot of unused opportunities in our democracy. There's still a lot of things that we don't use. In our treaty in itself, we have sort of the bridge to more majority voting. In the ways we work, we can still open up more. The European part of our democracy is very often much more open and transparent than the national democracies. And I don't think that we should fuel ideas that the European democracy is not democratic, because it is. It is indeed democratic. I think the work of the ALDE group is an everyday proof of that.
Albert?
Well, I think that the politicians in national level also has to be to realize autocritic and also explain to the people what is the European Union, why we take profit or advantage to be in the European Union, and sometimes in the economic crisis, especially, some leaders and some prime ministers says that everything that happens wrong or mistakes or problems in the country is fault of the commissioners or if the European Union or the Parliament of European Union or the Council. So this is also a good question. how the leaders in the national level can help to explain that the European Union is the best way and the best solution for the European citizens. Because sometimes in my country, in every country, I'm sure, normally the prime minister say that this is not my fault, it is the fault of the commissioner of competence that is doing anything. Or so I think that we have to think about that. And I believe in European Union, and it's also my job to explain to the Spanish citizens that European Union is best or better than to be out. I don't know. For instance, the last president of Catalonia says that they want to do a referendum to leave European Union. Of course, I have to explain to the Catalan people in the campaign that it's better to be in the European Union, not to be out. They are criticizing the European leaders because they are respecting the rule of law. And for me in the campaign, it's very important to explain that to respect the rule of law and the treaties and the constitution is the best way to get solutions to the conflicts. So, but I know that inside the countries, there are a lot of politicians that normally when commit a mistake or do a mistake or they are perhaps not dealing with the problems of the society, they are saying that the fault is about the commissioners or about the European Union. This is also our job in every country in the national level.
Maybe another question. I was very interested in what you told. You are a very young political party, a new political party, very strong at the moment, winning in the polls. And you say one of my basic ideas about renewing democracy is leaving the old left and right discussion behind. You say it are concepts of the past, in fact. And we have to see that there are new battlefields, if I might say, political battlefields, ideological battlefields, we have to be in. Maybe you can elaborate that idea a little bit more, because it can be interesting. At the moment, we know that there is an opportunity, we believe, that the liberal ALDE family can become maybe in 19 one of the two biggest, we know one of the two biggest, even maybe the biggest political force in the European Parliament. So it's also interesting to know in which field we play, the field of the future, because we see a lot of changes in society, and you are one of those parties that adapt that change very, very good in the way you think about politics.
Well, I believe that in the past, I'm sure in the 90s, 20 years ago, the left and the right could be the more easy or the easier way to explain to the people what do you want to belong. But now, the new situation with the populists growing up, with the nationalists threatening the European Union, I think it's better to talk about values. Probably I have common values with a lot of people, and I don't know if they are in the center left or in the center right. But I'm sure that they are pro-European. They prefer globalization against protectionists. They prefer free market to work for the citizens and not to create new borders. So for me, in this moment, in the 21st century, it's easier to get answers to the new questions, not with the axis of left or right. It's better to the axis of pro-European, globalization, liberalisms, freedom, welfare state. So for me, the debate in the future in ALDE group also has to be in this way. I don't know, but probably in this group, in this family of parties, there are people that perhaps don't trust on these values. I don't know. And I want to know, and I want to discuss. I want to discuss if we want a safety borders, but also if we defend the solidarity inside the European Union. I want to know if they are pro-European people or people that don't trust in European Union. For me, it's more important this difference or the common values that if they are in the center, center left, center right. This is the new battle, and the only way to fight and to beat the populists in the elections, the only way is to be together, this strong family with these values, and I'm sure that the next Parliament of European Union has to talk about that. The next elections, the 19 elections, is a big opportunity for the liberals to unite the European, pro-European people in a list, in a project, because the socialists and the conservatives probably prefer the only axis between left and right, and we prefer the new axis that is of values and project for European Union.
But Bart, couldn't I ask you to answer your own question? Because as I know your work, as you do as mayor of Mechelen, you do exactly what we're talking about. In concrete, every day, finding solutions and making people very, very proud of being citizens of Mechelen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I completely agree with Albert. To give you one example, you have to know my city is a very diverse city with 138 different nationalities. It was never a liberal city. At the moment, I'm already mayor for 17 years, the first liberal mayor ever. And we are growing in popular support. And because we embrace at a certain moment diversity. And that's a very liberal idea. And what I see, and that's on a local level, but maybe it's also in a national or European level, that is that group thinking is one of the worst things that can happen in politics. And that's the disease of the classical left and the classical right. The classical left put people in a group and say you are discriminated, you don't have opportunities in life, and right-wing politicians do that, and they say to people, you are a problem. You create, you abuse our social security, for example, and you create criminality problems. And they both make caricatures of people. They both put them in a corner. And I, as a mayor, said at a certain moment, no, my city is not a city of communities. It's a city of citizens, and they are all unique. And you don't put them in a corner. Because the disease of classical left and classical right is that they don't want to see the positive role models. Positive role models because it doesn't fit in their story. If there are positive role models, they are not all criminals or they are not all discriminated. There is a way out. And one of the things, what we as liberals do is put those role models central because they are a source of inspiration to people to use their talents and for others to overcome their prejudices. So that was one of the approaches I tried to do, and then you see it works. It's an honest story, and it can bring people together. It can bridge people, and it puts liberalism against the old politics of left and right, and it gives a new, let's say, positive vibe to society. That's one example, I think, how liberalism can be a different concept than the old politics. And it puts open society to closed society. And closed society is as left as the right, as done in the past. So I completely agree. And I think if we can have that framework as a framework of the future, we liberals will win. Because we are at one side, and all the others are at the other side. And that's always the best position to win an election. So I hope that the inspiration Albert gives us will be used also in other countries in the future to see liberalism as the project of the future. Maybe a last question, because I know as a Belgian liberal that this starts to be the hour that people tend to go to the bar, but I want to ask a very important question, and I would like to, because I know you are inspired by John F. Kennedy. People told me. And one of the most beautiful phrases of JFK was, don't ask what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. If we are in the front line of the battle against populism, if we are the party that has to defend an open society, democracy, the European project, what would you advise to all those liberals in the room that they could do? How can they help to win that battle? What would be your central proposal to them, or central idea or advice to them?
Well, in three, just to point out three things, issues. The best policies for the middle class people. Trust on your values, liberal values and European values. And has a project for the majority of the society. It's not about if you have the 15%, the 10% of the votes. It doesn't matter. You have, and you must have, a project for the majority. You have to trust on this framework, the liberalisms against the old premises, the old axis. I'm sure that the future is that. I'm sure that the future is coming and arriving. And I'm sure that if you trust in these values, you have a project, you have good policies, and you respect the rest of the people, that the ideology of the rest of the people, I think that we can be successful in the next election. And also, finally, engage with the people, not just with your party. In the society now, the parties are not important, or parties are a problem, a part of the problem. I think that we have to engage with platforms, the civil society, people who want to change your country or your city. So we are not too important. The people is more important than us. If we hear the people and we can get solutions, I'm sure that you can be successful in the next elections.
Margrethe.
But, you know, I really admire how this Congress is engaged. I really like our new colors and our new logo. I like that it's a professional organization. I like the fringe meetings, and we learn from one another, and we get campaign inspiration. But it must never be smooth or smart. And I think, for me, the most important thing is to have the courage to be personal, to have the courage to show other people that you're vulnerable in your beliefs, so that it is really you. And it's a choice to engage, to be personal about it, to be sometimes emotional. Because if you can do that, then you can make other people engage with you. And that is what I think we need in our European democracy. It's not a bureaucracy. It's not too smart. It's not too smooth. It is about people and having the courage also to show when we are vulnerable and need others in order to find solutions.
Very beautiful. To conclude, dear Liberal friends, I also have two propositions. One of the Committee of the Regions and one a personal one. The first is, we all have our National Day, but we also have a Europe Day. And a few people in the Committee of the Regions organized last year a celebration of that Europe's Day on a local level. They invited people, they organized debates, they organized a party to celebrate Europe, the emotion around Europe in a positive way. We made a website with the Committee of the Regions, celebrateeuropeday.eu. There you can see how you can organize it and how it can be done. If everybody in the room does that, then we have hundreds of cities and places in Europe where Europe's Day is a positive party, a positive moment in the life of your region. So we invite you warmly to go to that website. Secondly, if we liberals really believe that diversity and freedom are two sides of the same coin, then we have to work on it. Then we have to fight segregation. And maybe we have to start with giving the example in our local political parties to look for people with a different background, with a different conviction maybe, and to convince them to join our liberal family, to bring them in. It will not only emancipate and liberate them, but it will, and it's more important, emancipate and liberate ourselves. Make your party diverse, certainly on the ethnical basis, because the future of Europe will be diverse and will be multicultural, and let's be part of that future. Thank you.